When you picture brand new, modern Tokyo developments, you're probably imagining something, well, pristine, right? Tidy white boxes, polished glass everywhere, hushed voices, and this heavily curated, minimalist aesthetic. Well, for today's explainer, we are looking at a place that takes that entire rulebook and just throws it right out the window. We're exploring Mikan Shimokita. This is the raw, the loud, the absolutely rowdy side of the famous Shimokitazawa neighborhood. It's this unapologetic, food-heavy complex packed right underneath the railway tracks by the east side of the station. And honestly, it's the absolute antithesis of everything you've come to expect from modern Tokyo design. 2022. That is the year this complex was actually built by Kyo along the Inokashira Line viaduct. Now you might be wondering, why is that date so surprising? Well, because when you actually step foot into Mikan, there's no way you'd guess it's that new. It feels completely organic. It has this sprawling, chaotic, alive energy. Honestly, it's like wandering into a decades-old Asian night market. Yet, believe it or not, this was a highly deliberate, incredibly recent retail and food development. It's actually the newest piece of a massive railway redevelopment project in the area.
Section 1. The Philosophy of Unfinished. Okay, so the name itself, Mikan, is actually a really brilliant Japanese pun. If you say it out loud, it sounds exactly like the word for a mandarin orange. But the way it's written here, it literally translates to unfinished. And that right there is the core concept of this entire space. It's a place that is intentionally never complete. It's always changing. The developers actually leaned hard into imperfection. They left the concrete exposed. They allowed the signage to become this tangled, overlapping web of neon and metal. If you didn't know the story behind the name, you might walk through and think, this place looks a little messy. But knowing this definition, it changes everything. It completely transforms what looks like neglect into a highly deliberate, fascinating design statement.
Section 2. A Hawker Center Experience. So, there is a perfect formula for exactly what to do when you arrive here. First and foremost, you gotta eat. There is this incredibly dense run of international restaurants, particularly strong on Thai, Chinese, and other Asian cuisines, which really fuels that bustling night market energy. Second, you drink. The izakaya and bars here are literally designed to fill up and stay super loud well into the night. Now, it's not exclusively about the food and drinks. You can absolutely browse, too. They've integrated this massive Tutaya bookstore and a share lounge workspace right into the complex, along with a handful of scattered shops. But ultimately, the real goal is to linger. This under-the-track setting isn't just somewhere you pass through to run a quick errand. It is an absolute destination in itself. Food and Cafes writer Theo Nakagawa has this fantastic local tip for tackling the space, and he really hit the nail on the head. He says to treat it exactly like a hawker center. Don't just sit down at one big table for the whole night. Instead, order a couple of small dishes at one counter, soak in the vibe, then physically get up, move to the next spot, and share everything. Mikanon is architecturally and conceptually built for grazing. It absolutely rewards the wanderer. Section 3. The Vibe Check. Mikan versus Reload. Now, comparing Mikan with its sister development just on the street really highlights the contrasting forces of Shimokitazawa's whole redevelopment. Both of these complexes are just a short walk apart, but they pull you in totally opposite directions. Look at the vibe. Mikan is raw, it's energetic, it's right under the grinding tracks. Reload, on the other hand, is polished and very design-led. When it comes to what they're actually best for, Mikan is your go-to for eating and loud drinking, whereas Reload is where you'd head for some quiet shopping and a really calm cup of coffee. Even their peak times are opposite. Mikan hits its stride in the evening, while Reload is absolutely a daytime destination. If Reload is tidy stacked boxes, Mikan is that chaotic Asian market sprawl we talked about. So the big takeaway here is, if you only have time for one, let the clock decide. Let your current mood and the time of day dictate your destination. Section 4. Your perfect itinerary. You absolutely want to go in the evening. Look, daytime at Mikan is perfectly fine, for sure. It's quieter, it's a solid time to check out the Chitaya bookstore, grab a calm lunch, or maybe get a bit of work done in the lounge. But make no mistake about it, Mikan is a night-out destination first and foremost. The evening is when the food and drink scene peaks, the restaurants fill up, the volume literally gets turned up, and that under-the-track setting just becomes electric. Oh, and a quick practical tip for you. While cards do work at most places, make sure you carry a little bit of cash for the smaller counters and bars you'll be grazing at. Here is another brilliant piece of insider advice, this time from music and culture writer Saori Mizuno. She highly recommends making Mikan your dinner right before a show. Remember, Shimokitazawa is legendary for its live music and indie band scene.
Because Mikan sits literally steps from the east exit of the station, it is ridiculously easy to get to. And because of that hawker center style, the food comes out fast. That means you can eat incredibly well, soak up all that vibrant energy, and still easily make an early live music set without constantly stressing over your watch.
So, how does this all flow together into the perfect day? Well, in the afternoon, you spend your time exploring the vintage clothing shops in the older lanes. Or maybe you're grabbing a coffee over at the polished, newer blocks like Reload. Then, at dusk, as the light starts to fade, you just sort of let yourself drift over to the east side of the station. This is exactly when the Mikan restaurants are hitting their stride. By evening, you are fully immersed, grazing across a few different Thai or Chinese food counters. Finally, as night sets in, you've got a choice to make. Stay right where you are for some loud drinks at an izakaya under the tracks, or head out into the neighborhood to one of the famous live houses. It's honestly the most natural climax to a day in the area. Which brings us to our final thought for this explainer and a question I really want to leave you with. When you envision your ideal Tokyo experience, what kind of night out do you actually prefer? Do you gravitate toward the polished, quiet, sit-down dinners that define so much of the modern city? Or are you drawn to the rowdy, loud, perfectly unfinished grazing experience of an under-the-tracks night market? Because Mikan Shimokita proves that Tokyo isn't just one thing. It's a massive, living puzzle of a city that allows you to choose your own adventure, right down to the specific neighborhood block. Definitely keep that in mind the next time you find yourself wandering near the Kyo and Okushira line.